response to Kevin Samuel's death expose the racist elements of feminism?
Absolutely, it does. And it also shows how deeply those racist elements of feminism have infiltrated what you want to call Black feminism. There has been,
Yeah.
um, there's been a push over the past, I guess I say maybe over the past 5 years, where you begin to see conversations where Black feminists are starting to separate themselves from calling themselves feminists into womanists. And I think if you look at what happens if you look at womanism, if you look at the core ideas of womanism, there's nothing really wrong with womanism because womanism, and Dr. Johnson can correct me if I misspeak here, is the idea that Black women have been completely marginalized by traditional mainstream feminism,
Mm.
and it's a way for Black women to sort of like center themselves and center their communities from a feminist or woman-centered standpoint. And there are a lot of people who I know who consider themselves womanists who actually I agree with that. I agree that there definitely needs to be a space for Black women to be able to center themselves and build amongst themselves and then build with the communities. What's happened is people who are hardcore feminists who are Black are starting to infiltrate into the idea of womanism, and they're starting to bring along the mainstream ideas of feminism, where the Black man is a boogeyman and the Black man is as a predator, which is what a lot of mainstream feminism is. There's a separation to call it white feminism and Black feminism, but really at the core it's all feminism. And the core of feminism in America is the idea that the Black man is the boogeyman, and that goes all the way back to the Seneca Conference with Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass. This idea that a Black man is not allowed to speak, or a Black man or a Black families are not allowed to gain anything until the white woman is centered first.
Mm-hmm.
That is the core tenet of feminism in America. Now, of course, and there's different offshoots of it, like in England and other places like that were still active at that time in the 1800s. But in America, the idea of feminism is that the white woman deserves to be on equal par with white men, and everybody else has to get whatever scraps they can get after that. So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it shows the white racist tenets of feminism, and it shows how well indoctrinated a lot of Black women and a lot of Black men as well, who consider themselves feminists, but they're really not. They're really opportunists, are indoctrinated in this white supremacist idea that Black men have to be silenced and destroyed. I mean, let's just be real about it. Now, I'm gonna come out of my erudition a little bit. Just be honest. A lot of these guys who you see, especially online, who parrot a lot of this stuff, a lot of them are simps, straight up. That's really what it is. They're opportunists. They're trying to get at women, and they feel like the way to do that is be like the guy in the bar who keeps feeding women drinks and saying, yes, baby, I agree. Yeah, that dude is a dog. I agree with everything you say. That's really what that is.
So you wake up in his apartment the next morning, man.
It's the exact same. It's the exact same thing, baby. You're right. That's a dog, baby. Here, get this drink. That's exactly the way those dudes move. That's what that is.
Absolutely. There's a lot of virtue signaling, and a lot of that took place right after. I mean, the hour that it hit social media that he had passed, you saw a lot of virtue signaling. So you did see a lot of people celebrating, and then you also saw men who were coming forward to say, "I'm better than him. I would never do that. He's such a monster," and X, Y, and Z. And it was shameful. It was shameful.
Every singles bar got that same type of dude in it.
You know, and I always wonder how many of those men behind closed doors or in a room with men only would change up their narrative, or if some of them legitimately believe that everything he was saying was totally and 100% perfect. The Black woman is God. The Black woman can do no wrong. She's the most unprotected. Yada yada yada. Like I just wonder if there is a large population of men who legitimately believe that, or they play a role just to be opportunist. I don't know. It's something I think about.
I don't have any data one way or the other. I can only give an anecdotal response, but I can tell you I've been to conferences. I've sat at homes with scholars, and you get a few glasses of wine or a couple beers in them, and you find out that a lot of that is performance. A lot of that is, and you gotta look at the incentives that go with that, right? Career advancement, all those type of things that go with that. Offending students. I mean, look, I had a whole group of female students who wanted to get me fired because I showed statistics on Black male homelessness, incarceration. I just put statistics on the board about Black men, and that was grounds, as far as they were concerned, to try and get me fired. So it's such a fraught space that there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of reason to not speak up and say anything. And if you can compliment women, whether it's in media production or whether it's in the academy, it's you can get along a lot easier. It's the path of least resistance.
That's very
Right.
true, and I can speak to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an academic, but a lot of academics I speak with, I'll have my DMs and people who reach out to me tell me all the time that it's so glad that we have people who are speaking up for us because we can't speak. There are a lot of black men and black women who work in academia and work in mainstream media who don't really rock with a lot of these hateful narratives about black men, but they can't say anything because their jobs are in jeopardy because of that.
Mhm.
And then you have to ask yourself, what created the climate where you work in places where public discourse and kicking around ideas should be the norm, to you
Right.
can't even voice an idea that says, well, maybe we should look at some of the outcomes of black men, or maybe we should look at some of the narratives that we're pushing out in the media about black men, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like what happened with just a month ago, Tina Knowles Lawson produced a really real documentary called Profile, the Black Man. And it was about how black men have been historically profiled in America and how a lot of
Yeah.
the police outcomes that we see have a historical context going back to ever since we landed on these shores. And the
Mhm.
pushback she got from women and a lot of these same dudes who we talked about was crazy to me. And this is the mother of their icon, Beyonce, and she couldn't even get a pass to even talk about black men. That shows you the
I
hostility towards
know.
black men in America.
They
And all
attacked
the
her,
feminists
and it hadn't even come out yet.
Hmm.
Nobody had even
yeah.
seen it yet, and she got attacked just because the mention of it.
Oh, it was disgusting. I went to the page where they had the petition to try to remove it. It was disgusting. I'm trying to think of like deplorable. It was like it was some of the most evil rhetoric I've ever seen. And I'm just like, how do you have this much hatred? Like I look at some of this up to me and I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I'm like, where did this come from? And I
But
know
you
you
know,
had made a mention of this, Mr. Walker, about sometimes it seems as if women who grew up in trauma and didn't get any healing, didn't go to therapy, didn't seek spiritual healing, didn't seek any perspective. It seems like those women are the ones with the microphone, with the blowhorn, like doing the loudest message. Because I'm just like, the way that these women is talked as if they literally chose like a beast from hell, and that's black men. Like that's essentially what they're fighting against. Like the way that some of these words are, the rhetoric is used, and this is your dad. You're
yeah,
talking about
exactly.
him. Okay, if black men are beasts or they're nakers, dusties, whatever, well, what does that say about you? You have their DNA in your body. And that's what I'm like. I don't think these women understand that at each moment you go and you demonize men, you are demonizing yourself, because nobody looks at a black woman and says, oh, well, you're from the white community, or you're from
Right.
the Asian community, or you're from the Palestinian community. It's like, no, you're a black woman. They're looking at you from the black community, period. This is the way that we're being perceived. So we don't understand how we undermine even our own image when we go and we bash and we make it a sport to treat our men like they're beast. It's like it's some just like, are you not thinking? Like, what is going on here?
But
So
that's one of the reasons. Like when you talk about these, extreme feminists that are out there saying these crazy things like black men are bullet bags, that's one level that we deal
yeah.
with. But one of the reasons I talk about anti-black misandry is I'm more concerned about the baked-in level contempt that is far more prevalent among the rank and file. And what do I mean by that? I mean, Torrin brought up color purple earlier. I grew up in an era where antipathy toward black men was normalized. It was accepted, and it was low level. And even Kevin used to talk about the low level of contempt, that the one-way aggression from black women to black women, black men. That's what I talk more about, because I think that's more dangerous than the small few extreme feminists on Twitter. It's the everyday casual misandry that's acceptable, and
Yeah.
especially when it's applauded in media and it's supported in casual conversation, and it becomes the primary framework by which black women address black men in a public space. That to me is far more dangerous.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Real quick, I wanted